So really what I did is I put sales and marketing on the same tool and said, we're going to be drinking from the same fountain now. We need to keep our data clean and clear, and we need to have a lot of conversation because our customer is our collective customer. It's not sales, it's not marketing, it's our collective customer, and they're just on a journey. We want to make sure that they're making their way through the journey the way we want them to be going through it. So it starts off, our marketing director challenged me a couple weeks ago, and he said, it's funny, we hear you talk about customer expectation, but Rich, your undertone is very much we expect something of ourselves. And so he's like, be vocal about that. Like, we should be asking the question, what do we expect to give our customer? What do we expect for them to have the journey? And I'm like, yeah, name it, label it, and stay true to it.
Welcome to Over at Pint, where we focus on the fast-paced, never-changing world of marketing told through the eyes of industry veterans with decades of in-the-trenches experience. No theory here. This is real-world, practical experience told to you by those that have been there, and that includes our guests. So grab a pint of your favorite local brewski or whatever your choice of drink may be, and join us for the show. Today, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Pat McGovern, new biz director at Acedia, an award-winning digital shop here in Milwaukee. And I'm Kurtl, Vice President at Celtic, a full-service award-winning ad agency headquartered in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward neighborhood. So, Pat, as we continue to say here on Over a Pint, we touch all the bases here, don't we, with our clients and the different industries and categories they represent.
I know.
Travel, outdoor, healthcare, and yes, manufacturing. If you hit any news outlets these days, manufacturing is in the news. Supply chain issues, the need to hire, price increases, there are lots and lots of challenges out there, but there are also a lot of cool success stories as well. We had Carrie Tingley on a few weeks back, Vice President and General Manager of Eaton's Industrial Control Division. And did Carrie ever knock it out of the ballpark for us and our listeners? And I have zero doubt today, Pat, that today's guest is going to bring his big bat to the game and will be taking some serious cracks at the ball himself. Today, we're chatting with Rich Gaffney, Vice President of Commercial Operations at Sentry Equipment. So real shortly here, Rich will get us into the weeds about what Sentry is all about, but here's what's really cool about this company. In 3 words, they get it. As a manufacturer, they 100% understand the fact that they are in the people business, despite being a manufacturer. Sentry prides itself in providing customer-first solutions through exceptional service and products, which is super smart because it demonstrates that this company knows that it's playing the long game versus short ball. Every day around the world, Sentry equipment is essential in many of the systems that most of us unknowingly trust daily. As a 100% employee-owned company headquartered in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, Sentry serves customers in over 50 countries across 6 continents. So many ways we can take this conversation with Rich, which is exactly why we wanted him on. So let's get him on here. Rich, welcome to Over a Pint.
Hey, thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Patrick. I'm looking forward to being here, and hopefully the pregame sale is worth the full ticket price.
It's gonna be marked up a little bit too. That's how good it's gonna be. So Rich, the show is called Over a Pint. We call it that for a reason. We have a little tradition on this show. Before we get into the conversation, we like to go around the horn with everyone, and they share with us what's in their pint glass. Tea, water, coffee, soda, beer, whatever their choice of liquid may be, we gladly promote it later on. But we'll start with you, Rich. What are you drinking today?
So today I have on tap, I have in my glass here, I have Third Space Happy Place, one of my favorite local breweries, and just a really easy drinking Midwestern style pale ale. So that's what I'll be having while we're chatting today.
That was a nice looking pint glass, by the way, too, Rich. Not that, I happen to see some of well, that was pretty nice. You have to hold that up a few times throughout the show and then bring it over this way a little bit. Good call. Mr. McGovern, what do you got for us today?
Today I'm knocking back a spotted, can you see that? Spotted cow. New Glarus. Yep.
Good one.
Always good. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
So I'm having a beer from Raised Grain Brewing out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. This is their Belgian stout. It's the Black Walnuts. Very tasty. It kind of has a coffee, vanilla kind of taste to it, but with a malty base, dark beer. It's got a little punch to it. I think it's, I looked on the can, I think it was like 9 point something. So it brings a little punch to the game. It's very good. I've had it before. If you've never been to Raised Grain Brewing in Waukesha, I also recommend go out there and check it out. It's a cool place to have a beer at the tap room. Nice people. They're doing some good stuff. So cheers, Rich. It's great having you on the show.
Cheers, Rich.
Cheers.
All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off. So as we always like to do, when we kick it off a little bit, we like to kind of hear the story of our guests. Everyone has a story. Brands have story, people have stories, and I know Rich has a story. So Rich, if you could, in a few minutes, tell us your story. What makes you tick, your background, just kind of give us the Reader Digest version, I guess, if you could, of what Rich is all about.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, at the core of me, family means everything to me. 2 kids, wife. We like boating, being outdoors, avid golfer, not good at it, but still keep after it. So at the core, it's really about, family and the experiences and getting outdoors. That's kind of who I am. Background on me. I was born and raised in Minnesota. I am a Gopher fan. Hopefully that doesn't offend most of the viewership here. But I'm from Minnesota originally, mechanical engineering background, and transitioned into sales about 8-10 years into my career, and then found my way down for the opportunity at Sentry. So I'm in southeastern Wisconsin today because of the opportunity that was presented to me through Sentry Equipment, coming on board as a sales manager and then working my way through the ranks there. And so I've been with Sentry Equipment coming up on 17 years next month.
Wow.
And I've served in a variety of roles during my time at Sentry. I'm really passionate about employee ownership. So I've served as a vice president for the Wisconsin ESOP chapter membership specific committee. And then through Sentry, it's been always customer facing. So regional sales and then national leadership, and then now VP of overall commercial operations. So that's kind of that's kind of the nickel tour of my life and what brought us here today.
Well, Rich, that's a great nickel tour. So I think that's you did a really nice job giving us an overview on who you are. As I alluded to in the beginning when I did the intro, I gave a very top line overview on Sentry. And like I said, the cool thing about Sentry is I think what your brand stands for, how you prioritize your why and your purpose for existence, which is really cool. That said, if you could, for our listeners, break it down for us a little bit more and let's get into the weeds. Talk to us about what Sentry Equipment is and specifically what it is you do.
Sure, fair enough. So very specifically, Sentry Equipment is a manufacturer. We've been around 98 years, always in southeastern Wisconsin. So we're coming up on our 100th anniversary, which in itself is a feat, no doubt. We manufacture goods. So the cool part about Sentry, I should back up a minute. The really cool part about Sentry is we're employee owned, but the products we manufacture and make, we get to help people in all sorts of different industries. Some companies are really focused on singular industry like power generation or oil and gas, maybe specific in the oil and gas segment. We help customers across all segmentation. And so it's sampling devices is what we do. And when you turn your power on, or you turn your lights on rather, you have reliable energy and power. We help with that. We build the chemical labs and help them balance the water chemistry and power plants. That's the bread and butter of what we do still today. over 50% of what we do, but also was pretty much what our company was founded upon, which was that boiler steam cycle chemistry, heat recovery, things like that. That's where Sentry got its beginning. And we started in the food and beverage industry, but quickly transitioned into power generation as the company commercialized, because there was a lot of demand. And for everybody out there, simple terms, the power that we get, by and large, still today is generated through a steam cycle. Basically, you're boiling water, turning a turbine, and that's what's creating, and the generator's creating electricity and distributing it to all of us. The water chemistry is very important in that cycle generation, because if anything's off, the turbine will get plated or things will get plugged up, and then the turbine would fail prematurely, aka we're not making power. Nobody wants that. So that's where Sentry plays a role in that segment. In oil and gas, we play all the way through the stream. So wherever it's being brought out of the ground, the oil or natural gas being brought out of the ground, all the way through refined product, even into products like plastics and different elastomers and lubricants and things like that, not just gasoline, all through that production process. And what we do a variety of ways is help our customers reliably produce those products and produce those while staying within EPA guidelines and all of their safety protocol as well. So we're helping them maintain safety for the environment and their people and their plants, as well as stay on permit and make sure that they're producing good product as they're passing it to the next operation.
Trust is, we talked a little earlier, it's like what you describe. First of all, I was counting in my mind a little bit, and Pat, I don't know about you, how many times do you think Rich has said the word customer?
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. That's come up a lot. And I think that's the theme here that we're going to talk more about. Customers come up over and over and over. So I want to get into two things. One is there's this underlying customer-centric philosophy, mission, whatever you want to call it, that I want you to break down for us a little bit. The other thing too is the way you described what it is you do. These are things that we might not necessarily, whether it's the individual or corporation, whatever, it's like we might not see it, but my goodness, it's everything. We do rely on this every single day. Without what Sentry equipment provides, the world looks a little bit different. Our world looks a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I use the word customer a lot because we are a customer-centric organization. Our why statement is simple. It's to safeguard people and processes for a better world. So we all wake up every single day with the mission. We're all rowing the boat in the same direction to help our customers do all of those basic infrastructure things they do to make our lives better, right? And that's really at the heart and soul of Sentry. So when we look at it, not just as a commercial team, but all of the other parts of the manufacturing process, we're here to help our customers be better, do better, and we're in it with them as a partnership. And that's really what we look to achieve, is that true partnership. We want not just to have the transactions. Philosophy-wise, I've always been of the opinion, if you focus on the right thing, other things will come, right? So in the case of sales and dollars and revenue, I choose to focus on building the relationship, that trust bridge. The trust bridge has got to be in every transaction. I believe that's the fundamental component of sales. With no trust, there is no real sale. And I don't want a sale, I want a partnership. So that's how I coach the team, and then I've lived my career as well. And then I believe the dollars will follow. We'll know what things we can innovate next, or companies we can align with next to better serve those we're trying to help. And so our culture is all about learning and growth. And then right behind that is the customer interaction. So the customer experience is top of mind for everybody every day. And simply put, and I believe there's a component of the employee ownership that bleeds into that. Our president, Brian Baker, talks about it in context of, if you go to a restaurant, would you rather be waited on the restaurant owner or just an employee? And hands down, you would probably say the owner, because there's a really good chance you're going to get a better experience because they have skin in the game, and it's their business, it's their own personal brand as well as their restaurant brand being represented. Same thing applies to Sentry. This is our own personal brand. We all take pride in everything we put out the back door, even though we don't get to see the smile on everybody's face. And maybe sometimes our customers aren't smiling because they're buying things they need. They're not buying things that are, that are just bringing true happiness. But at the end of the day, we're helping them achieve their goals and see the success that they want to see. And it all kind of comes full circle, because in our lives, you guys as well, in our lives, everything we do helps produce everything that's in front of us.
Rich, I'm one last thing I just got to ask, and then so from this customer centric, I'm fascinated by the customer centric approach, and it's I'm going to use the word, and don't take it the wrong way. It's like the Kool-Aid. Clearly you believe it, and I love it, and I know you believe it, and the company believes it. It is ingrained in your culture. So I want to ask you a question from your personal perspective. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Did you, because I mean, it clearly, Rich, probably it's a part of your DNA. Did you just happen to find a great spot to land that matched up with what you believe and stand for? Or did you kind of did when you got to Sentry Equipment, was it a matter of some of that rubbing off on you? I'm just kind of curious, because clearly you're in a great spot. You love where you are. I know you are. How did that, were you there before, or did Sentry help kind of get you going a little bit on the Kool-Aid? Explain that to me.
Yeah, no, that it's great. And I don't take Kool-Aid negatively. I get the context of it. So for me, I think it was more that I landed in a good spot, and here's why. So through school, how I put myself through college is I was an auto mechanic. So I'm a very mechanical kind of person. Sentry makes mechanical goods. Being a mechanic, one of the first things for me, what I used to do when I was a mechanic is I would keep old parts around, and then I would keep, and then I'd grab a new part or good part, and then I would be able to show the customer, like, hey, this is bad, and here's why it's bad, and this is why you need to replace it. Because I wanted them to know I was being truthful and honest with them. And the best way for me to do that was visual, because that's the way that I learn, and I'm a mechanical kind of person. So that was already ingrained in me. And when I transitioned into sales, it was a slow transition for me mentally, because I thought, like a lot of people do, nobody wants to talk to a sales dude, right? And I didn't want to sell toilet paper or light bulbs or anything. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I wanted to be more intimate through the process. And I had really good mentors that were sales engineers and said, hey, this is about helping people produce something or fix problems. It's not just about a transaction. So when I interviewed with Sentry, I interviewed with the president at the time and the VP of Human Resources. And I got that cultural vibe from them, Kurt. Like, I felt like we were aligned. We were at dinner in Minneapolis for 2 hours, but I felt like a kindred type spirit. And when I came down to Sentry and interviewed in person and met people, all the other employees and their families, it became clear and evident to me that not only was I aligned just with technical training and technical background, but there was a cultural alignment as well. So Kurt, maybe in some ways I brought Kool-Aid too, maybe a different flavor of Kool-Aid, but it was definitely, it felt definitely right. And just through the years, again, coming up on 17 years, that cultural component has stayed there, and we just continue to focus on it and grow it, which is a thing of beauty for me, because that's, again, just core to my personality.
Love it.
Yeah, I think it was just an alignment between myself and the company's culture, and then happy to be a part of it and be part of all that success. So really cool, man.
That is cool.
Rich, I want to back up a little bit. Something you said, and you're focused on building that trust bridge, and I think that's so critical, because we buy from people and businesses that we know, like, and trust. Right? That's a key thing. Rich, explain to us how you begin building trust. What's the process that you go through or take your sales team through?
Sure, fair. So listening is a big component, right? There's a saying I learned at a sales training a long time ago, but it was show up, don't throw up, right? And so show up, listen, be attentive, understand, listen with the intent to understand, and ask the questions about success, not just about the transaction, like why something is important. What would be considered a positive outcome. I think, Pat, through that transaction and how I've operated and how I coach the team to operate, we really get to understand not just the somebody says, I need a quote. Okay, what do you need a quote for? Why? What are we trying to solve? Can we come see the application if we need to? And we just work through that. We work through that process very intuitively with with our customers. And that's how we build trust. I believe that's where trust is built, because we're taking the time and we have the attention to detail to be able to put together something that truly is custom fit for what they're trying to do. Now, it might be a standard product for us still, but what we want to leave is the impression that we're serving the person in front of us directly. It's the old adage of what's in it for me radio. Let's make sure that we're dialed in on that. And there have been times, and I coach our team as well, we have our tagline and cut line, any application anywhere, right? And some people could take that very literal. I've coached our team that we want to be the people that our customers trust, and we may not be able to help them, but we should be in a position to point them where they can get help. I want to be invited to the table, and I want us to be the ones to be able to get up and say, all right, here's the deal. This application or this whatever transaction isn't exactly for us, but here's somebody you can call, tell them that I sent you, and they'll know to take care of you. And that's, I think, how you build trust. And our projects and our sales cycle are more truly project driven. So it's not always just point, click, purchase type of stuff. Some of it is, and we have a path for all of that, and especially on repurchase stuff. But they know over time that we're going to hang in it with them through the entire cycle of the project. We'll answer questions. They can lean on us. And one of my feathers, guys, sorry if I'm getting off topic a little bit, but one of my feathers in my career was I actually had a customer call me. I took really, really good care of them. I know some things about pneumatic conveying and weighing and other technologies. And he called me. He was at a different plant. And he said, hey, I have a question for you, but I need you to know I don't need samplers here, but I have some pneumatic conveying questions or mechanical conveying questions. Could you help me or tell me where I should go? And he's like, if you hang up on me, I understand, because there's no chance you're getting a sale from this, because I just don't need your equipment. I said, why would I hang up on you, man? I love having conversations like this. So we talked for 20 or 30 minutes. I turned him over to a business associate who I know and trust and said, this guy's going to shoot you straight. He's going to take care of you. That person ended up with the business based on my recommendation. And that was a feather in my cap that somebody took the time to call me and say, hey, man, I value you past even just buying something from you. I think you have something to add. And that's where trust is, to me, is that you get to that level of conversation with your customer. And that process is all about peeling back those onion layers and knowing where the customer wants to be. We could inundate them with 100 questions for sure, but ask the right ones at the right time. And you may not need all 100, or you'll get through 100 and it feels like you went through 10, right? So it's all about placement and understanding.
Rich, talk to us a little bit about the sales process. I mean, when you're talking about sampling equipment, this seems to me like a very complicated journey. What's it like? Like, are we talking months? Are we talking years? I mean, just break it down for us.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah. So when we say sampling application, right, it can be really complex. It can be relatively short-lived as well. It depends on the application and what the customer is trying to do. So the sales process is always the same. It's just the process gets longer or has more offshoots of it, depending on what the project might be. So the selling process always starts with somebody labeling their application. I have a need for a sampler. So then what we do is we, as salespeople, usually a regional salesperson, calls the customer. Now, pre-COVID, it was, go to the plant. Now that's changed a little bit. So there's more Teams videos and things like that. But we do kind of like an introductory call. Okay, tell us a little bit about what you're going on. Why do you think you need a sampler, or this one that you've labeled from our website? Help us through that process. Give us some of your process information, line sizes, material that you're trying to sample, et cetera, et cetera. Those things like that. We take all of that information, and that creates for what we call an application survey. So then we go back through and we say, okay, we think we're going to go here and here with this sampler or that sampler. I'm going to get you some information on those. And I'm also going to make sure that I got your application's info right. So double check that, make sure I heard everything. Or If they didn't have all the information, hey, could you do me a favor? If you can get this information, that would be great. Or if you can point me in a direction, let me contact this person and get this piece. But we always leave it with, we need this for this reason. Okay, so we set the expectation at every stage that this is what we're going to do. This is the purpose behind it, and we stay true to that purpose. And then we go through the process. Now, Pat, sometimes that can take a day. Sometimes that can take a month or a month and a half. Sometimes we get to that point, we do a sketch for the customer, we give it to them, and then they send it back to their team, and they were like, holy cow, I was completely wrong. We need something completely different. Hey, man, can you come out to our facility and walk it down with us? Ideally, our selling process is a site visit, because then that's when we can get in front of most of the folks. And when I say most of the folks, I want to be in front of the people who are going to be using the equipment, not just the people purchasing the equipment. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. Yep. But the people using the equipment, their input is important to us, because we need to make sure that whatever user aspects there are to it, we need to make sure that they understand it's going to help those purchasing folks not answer a bunch of questions after the transaction either that way, right? Yep. So ideally, we end up at site at some point, and we go through that process, and we get to understand what they're really trying to do, and we see it firsthand, not just in email form or in written form. That's the ideal process for us. And again, every application is different. So, some things are on a really tight leash. Other things are, I'm building a budget for next year, so I just need something budgetary right now. Can we just conceptualize this? And we absolutely do that as well.
Pat, what I like about, I don't know if you're picking up on this, but what I like about Rich's approach is it's very calming. Rich, it's like when you talk through things and you share things, there's something very calming about that, which I think gets back to the word trust. Just hearing you from the start of the conversation, whether it's you sharing your story, you're sharing the story about Sentry equipment, you're talking through what your philosophy and the company's philosophy is on the customer. It's very calming, which to me helps with trust. And I think it speaks to that customer journey and that consultation approach that you're describing. Again, it goes back to, you're playing the long game. You're viewing this as a marathon. This isn't a sprint. This isn't a sprint to see if I can run the 100-yard dash, whatever it is, as quick as possible. I'm in this for the long haul. Let's run this race together. I might not get a sale here or that, like you said, I don't care. I'm in this for the long haul. And I think that, to me, these are just things I'm picking up on, which again speaks to your culture. It's a compliment to you. Rich, in your opinion, has the customer changed much? If you look at what's been going on in your career, so obviously what's changed? Has the customer changed at all? Or is there a different, how do they look at things? Is it same old, or is the customer looking at things differently these days? It's a different buyer.
Yeah, I think, by and large, I think there's still, especially in the niche space that we play in, I think there's still a lot of similarities to when I started, because we're dealing with a lot of engineers specifically, so process engineers or industrial engineers. So these are folks that are updating processes in plants. They're not just the commodity purchase. So there's still a lot of similarities, but the change has happened not necessarily with the attitude somebody's bringing to the purchase, but just the level of necessity and help needed, because there aren't as many process engineers in plants as there used to be. Plants are, they're having, just like everybody else, they're having a hard time finding folks. But then even over the years, they've been trimming back on their staff. So people are wearing many more hats. And so somebody will come to us, they'll be a little more educated because there's, plenty of information online and our website, and just overall, they know their process. But they're also seeking that next step of advice, because they may have 10 things they're trying to do at once. And it's funny, because you said the calming part of it, that's to me where the real magic happens. Like, I want them to understand, we got this, we understand it, we're here. Hey man, you go worry about your other things you need to get done too. I got this part for you, right? And I'll help wherever I can. So I don't, Definitely when customers are coming to us today, they are coming from a different spot of education on what they might need. So we're probably seeing more today of, hey, I think I need this sampler. And then the question is why? Why do you think that? And tell me a little bit about your application. Sometimes they got it right on the money. Other times they're like, well, it's just the first thing I clicked on your website and it looked like it would fit where I need to fit it, type of thing. So I think that customer journey from their perspective is they're more educated and they're more purposeful in their engagement. So I have a specific need, I have a specific timeline, I need to get through this. And our job is to then help them through, let them know that their timeline is our timeline. We got this, we'll work through it. And we just continue to set that expectation for them through the process. But I think if there is anything that changed, it's, time has become really incredibly even more valuable than it's ever been because there's just less of it for them. So it's like, okay, let's go. I really need to know this, and understanding the gates that they're going through. It might be I have a meeting tomorrow. I need some information. I need a quote. Well, do you need a quote or do you need information? Let's work through that. Well, I just need my boss to get off my butt and I need to show progress. Okay, fair enough. I got you. Let's do that. But then let's talk next week a little bit more deeply about what the success would really look like, and let's get through it. So I think that's how it's changed. And you mentioned something, Kurt. You said we're in it for the long haul. And you used a race analogy. I use the analogy around the office as I talk to the entire organization in the context of a relay race. I truly believe that all we're doing is running a relay race. Each one of us has a different leg that we're running. Sales runs part of the leg, or commercial runs part of a leg. Engineering runs one of the legs, manufacturing. And to the customer, it should just look that seamless. They gave us a baton and we hand it off. And the cleaner and more efficiently we hand it off, the faster we ultimately are. And so I'm the internal to Sentry, the terminology I use is relay race, and we talk about the handoffs and making those as seamless as possible to give the customer the best experience they can possibly get.
Hey, Rich,
I like that.
This is a really good segue into, let's talk about sales and marketing. What has impressed me with Sentry is how much both areas seem to be working together. Let's be honest, in manufacturing, a lot of times sales and marketing are just two separate silos, not working very closely together. Couple questions for you, sir. One, how is sales and marketing, that just kind of evolution? How has that changed? And how do you view it at Sentry? How do you kind of make both of those, that seamless relay and that seamless handoff between both groups?
Sure. Yeah, fair. So I'll start. So marketing being synonymous in the commercial organization was by design when I took over the commercial group. Marketing up to that point was a different part of the organization, reporting directly to the president. We talked as a management team. I felt passionate that to be successful, we needed our demand generators and our closers, if you will, working together. We need to be hunting the right thing, and then we need to have the right gun and right ammo to make sure that we're getting the prey that we're seeking. And being apart, there were too many potentially conflicting opportunities, right? And so by design, when I came on board, we put those two groups together. So you're right, in manufacturing, there hasn't been a lot of presence on that. I think marketing has been looked at sales support, like, hey, I need a tech sheet for this, or I need a pretty new this, or hey, could you guys order me some business cards? And while those are just tactical needs of the business, it doesn't embody the strategy it takes to get somebody on the line that really wants or needs your stuff, right? Or educate them on what you're doing and why, and they come to you in a better, more prepared spot to have a dialogue. And so at Sentry, what I've done is I've purposefully put the teams together underneath me. So we still have a marketing director and we have a sales director, but my big push is work together. We huddle every Monday to kick the week off as a commercial leadership team. That's how we set the tone for the week. And we talk about what's working, what's not, what was last week like, what do we want to do this week? And even though weekly is probably a really tight cadence, I did that and I'm still doing that just to create that dialogue and foster the communication. And the goal of all of it is to get what we're going through right now is a transition of account-based selling and account-based marketing. So we started with account-based marketing, and we've been running those programs, and we've been very public about what successes we've seen using account-based marketing. And the sales team has seen some real wins from it themselves. And now that the company has seen the monetary benefit, and the salespeople, even in their own territories, have seen the monetary benefit, or the leads even just being teed up a little bit more, and the buyer at a different spot in the journey. That's been a catalyst for, hey, I want to do that again, but can we do it this way this time? And so now sales is starting to see marketing as that strategic partner, not just somebody that helps them set up a trade show. And that's my end goal, is I want this to be a strategic alliance commercially on the front end. Little bit of history about Sentry. We just went live on HubSpot 2 weeks ago. We had Salesforce as our CRM tool of preference. HubSpot was our marketing tool of preference, and all of our automation lived there. And then on the back end, we have Epicor, which is our ERP. None of those systems were connected. Completely ludicrous that they were not connected. But that's where we're getting silos, even in the commercial team. So we looked at HubSpot and we said, that's a perfectly fine CRM. We don't need all of the extras that Salesforce gives us. HubSpot will do it. And now the commercial team, front end of the business, is all tied in on the same tech. And the back end of the business is tied on the same tech. And then what we did is we even connected the two. So when we're doing quotes and as we have things available, the manufacturing side of the business has some access, or will, as we get this connection really rolling, they'll have access. So we'll be able to talk inside of our walls from an SOP standpoint, right? We'll be able to give more meaningful funnel review and 90-day rolling forecasts and all of that stuff.
Right.
So really what I did is I put sales and marketing on the same tool and said, we're going to be drinking from the same fountain now. We need to keep our data clean and clear, and we need to have a lot of conversation, because our customer is our collective customer. It's not sales, it's not marketing, it's our collective customer, and they're just on a journey. We want to make sure that they're making their way through the journey the way we want them to be going through it. So it starts off, our marketing director challenged me a couple weeks ago, and he said, it's funny, we hear you talk about customer expectation, but Rich, your undertone is very much we expect something of ourselves. And so he's like, be vocal about that. Like, we should be asking the question, what do we expect to give our customer? What do we expect for them to have the journey? And I'm like, yeah, name it, label it, and stay true to it. So to answer your question, Pat, did that make sense? Yeah.
Totally, Rich. Hey, just since we're on this topic, I'm just fascinated on this too, is what kind of, and again, I don't want specific numbers, but talk to me a little bit about just your retention rate with customers. I mean, once you get a customer, is the likelihood that they're going to be sticking with Sentry for a while? Or is there a lot of like, nope, I'm just going to jump over here. I'm going to do it. It seems like once you've got somebody, they're going to be with you for a long time.
Yeah, so we do, we get some segmentation, but by and large, I mean, I don't know, a little embarrassed, I don't know the exact number of retention, but we do have a very, very high retention rate. What happens if somebody doesn't come back to us? It's because that project is being run by a different part of the plant and there's a different preference, something along those lines. So what I'm telling you, Pat, is if we're engaged with somebody, and this is all equipment sales, service is a completely different bag. But on the equipment and the transaction of selling equipment, once we're engaged with somebody, they become a loyal user. Our reps even tell us that we perform on their line card better than some of the customer or some of their suppliers that generate more income. What I mean by that, we had one rep tell us, income wise, you're probably number 5 or number 6 on my line card. But ease of doing business, your equipment does what it says it's going to do. You guys always help and put us in a good position to close the sale, and in a positive light with the customer. You actually perform like you're number 3 to us. So when we get a lead from you, we treat it like gold, because we know you treat it like gold. Yep. And that's how and they feel obligated to carry that baton, so to speak.
Yep.
So that's, and then on the service side, we have a huge retention rate on the service side, because once we get the labor embedded in there and we get, we help the customer with their project, whether it's sampling or something else that we're qualified to do, then they stick with us. So retention's high 90s, Pat, somewhere in that range. Awesome. And it carries across organizations will get supplier of preference at one location, and then that just bleeds to other locations, and people will call us and say, you did the right thing over here. We need you to do the right thing over here now. So,
I want to talk about culture a little bit. Rich, it seems like, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like culture comes up a lot on the podcast, and it doesn't matter who the individual is, what category they're in, culture comes up in some way, shape, or form. It's critical. It's hard to build. It's hard to retain. And let's face it, the last 2+ years haven't made it easy on corporations. There's just a lot of variables out there. But as it pertains to Sentry equipment, let's talk about your culture. It seems to me, Rich, you're talking a lot about, I loved your analogy about the relay race. It's like, you're clearly looking for a certain individual, a certain type of person. You're clearly trying to find a certain type of vendor partner, a certain type of customer that needs to fit within the Sentry way. And the best example, I saw the movie Miracle recently, and it was when Herb Brooks, this is going back to 1980, a gold medal team when they beat the Soviet Union, but Herb Brooks was trying to build a team, and he had in his mind a certain type of individual that was going to be on that bench, and it might not have been exactly what another vision might have been. It wasn't always the all-star. It was this vision of what's going to make this culture and this team, how we do this to win. Let's talk about your bench. Let's talk about Sentry Equipment's team. Describe to us what type of individual walks in the door and makes it on the bench. They make the team. And what type of individual walks in the door and maybe doesn't get the jersey and doesn't make the team. Not that they're a bad person, but talk to us about that, because I think that's all culture. I want to hear your approach and your philosophy on this, Rich.
But hold on a second, Kurt. I don't know if Rich knows Herb Brooks. Do you, Rich?
Oh yeah, I know Herb Brooks. Yes, I had to Google it, but now I know. I feel like we're best friends.
Minnesota guy, how do you not know Herb Brooks?
Exactly. Well, I saw his face light up. I'm like, I figured that's a great analogy. I knew Rich would go like he'd run with that one.
Yep, being a Minnesota guy, hockey fan. Yep, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. So culturally, we are looking for that team, Kirk, and we actually, our process of hiring starts with a cultural interview process. And what's unique about that is it's a team event, so there's usually 3 people, and it has to be unanimous. So if the 3 of us right now were interviewing somebody and we didn't all agree, that's an automatic no. Okay, and we have a standard set of questions. You can kind of go off a little bit if you want, but what we're doing is we're looking for these core competencies, just how somebody's wired. We got right bus, then we have right seat. So we start out by the right bus. Is this person right for our bus? If they're right for our bus, then we look at their technical abilities and say, which seat should they be in? Now, what's unique about the 3 people doing the culture interview is 2 things. 1, it's not the hiring manager. 2, they've never even seen the resume of the person. Doesn't matter, not relevant. We're not looking for a resume. We're looking to get to know somebody. So that's how we start every process out. That's how hiring goes at Sentry. And the people who wouldn't make the team are the people who are probably more aligned with their personal brand than they would be getting on a team and being a team player. So when Herb Brooks was building that team, he wanted a lot of selflessness on the team, and he wanted humility as it came to serving the greater good of the team, not just the best forward, but the best forward that you want to play with forever type of a mentality. And that's what we look for. So that's how we intentionally hire through that process. And we've had a really good success rate with it. I mean, not everything's perfect, right? But we've been able to get a lot of good talent in to the company, and we had a really high retention rate, I believe, because we focus on that culture first, and then we're living that culture every day. That's our grind, is making sure that we hold ourselves accountable to the culture that we're trying to lay down and that foundation we're laying down. And people see that. And we've had people inside of our company trained, and if they're in one area of the company, say design, and they want to go back to school for like something different, like graphic design or whatever, they're a good person. The question is could we use them over, let's say, in marketing or in a different position, and can we see that transition happening? And if we can, and we believe in them, and we believe they have those basic skill sets, then we just train them to get them to move along, and then we help them up.
So when they do a rerun or a reprint of the book Good to Great, which is exactly what you're describing, which I love, it's let's get the people out, the right people on the bus, and then once we get them on the bus, what's the right seat? When they do a reprint, one of the case studies that I'm looking for, chapter 20, whatever, Sentry equipment, right? Because that's the whole book's based on. So
yep, it is absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, it's a great book. You answered it great. One of my final questions as we kind of start to look for a wrap up. We talked about we talked about Sentry equipment. Let's talk, if you could, briefly, if you look into your crystal ball, Rich, let's look at the world. Let's look at, manufacture, whatever. It's like, where are we at? Where are the opportunities? We've been hearing it from other guests coming on. What's your take on what is going on out there?
So lumpy would be a word that I would use to describe it. It's with so much with us coming out of the pandemic, all of the other unrest. It's really a challenging time. The supply chain, all of those things dominate. Those are headline news. But this reshoring of manufacturing and this more nationalism, I believe there's an undercurrent here. And I think as countries are seeing the benefit of being, bringing things back stateside, certainly the U.S. is bringing manufacturing back stateside, to give ourselves the ability to be scalable longer, or if nothing else, more protected or insulated from events like that are going on or have gone on. That's a big push. So that's driving a different demand and creating a different skill set and need at a greater rate than we've ever seen, or we haven't seen in a long time. So the state of manufacturing right now, activities out there, there's a lot of pent up demand. There's needs for stuff, but just the ability to be able to deliver on that stuff, on those needs is really, really difficult. And then rising prices. We're doing a price increase at Sentry. Thankfully, it's the first one we've had to do. We bought inventory early to insulate our customers. And then we were just very vocal, like, hey, 90 days from now, 60 days from now, we're going to need to do a price increase. So we got out in front of it and just set the expectation. But we're in our first price increase. And knock on wood, it's the only one we're going to have to do this year. But I can't guarantee it at this point. So just a lot of lumpiness out there. It's just volatility all over. And but I think it's all positive. I know there's a lot of talk of recession, or is it a soft landing versus a recession? I don't know. I think a lot of it has yet to be seen. But certainly it's a dynamic time right now. It's different. Yeah, different than I've seen in my career. So but as I was told when I was in Catholic grade school, different doesn't mean bad. It just means different. So we just take it and do what we can with it.
But there's a tendency when things do get lumpy like this, that people in organizations just retrench. But this might be the time for a lot of opportunity out there. What end of the spectrum are you guys playing on?
Oh, Pat, we're all about opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll retrench. We can retrench on some things. Sure. We might retrench on something to give ourselves one of our initiatives, to give ourselves more capacity to do another initiative. Right. And so Sentry is a very forward-looking company. We are squarely aligned in fossil fuel right now, and the world hates fossil fuel. 90% of our business is some way, shape, or form in the energy sector, almost squarely aligned in that sector in the fossil fuel world. So we are looking to diversify. We're looking at this as an opportunity not to roll over and play dead, but to come back bigger, stronger, better. And looking at the next 100 years, to be quite frankly with you, we're coming up, as I said earlier, on our 100-year anniversary. I want to know what the company's going to look like at year 200, and that's what we're focusing on.
Should be one big party 2 years from now, 100 years.
It'll be a big party for sure. Absolutely.
I'm sure it will be. My final question for you, Rich, and I love to ask this question. I'm a big believer by nature that things happen for a reason. I really do. I kind of like, when we fall, there was a reason why I might have fallen, because it led me to do something else, or it led me to try something else, challenge. From your personal story, Rich's story, was there a point in your career, in your life, that you could share, you feel comfortable sharing, you say, you know what, that was a setback, that was a fall, but best thing that ever happened to me because?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there's, I've fallen quite a few times. I got scars all over the place. So, but each time you fall, you get back up and you become bigger and better. And I'm an opportunistic person. And so, yeah, I mean, one specific, 8 years ago or so, I went through a divorce, and that was tough. I grew up with, parents that stayed together, and that was tough for me to make that decision to do that. But the reason why I did that was because I wanted a stronger relationship with my children. And early on in that fall, that wasn't the case. There was, trust lost. I needed to rebuild their trust. And but over time, I do believe, sitting here today, I have a better relationship with my children than I ever had before. And now they're marching into adulthood. I get the benefit of having an adult relationship with my children, which is intriguing to me. It's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to it. But that was probably, that was something that I had to intentfully do. But the light wasn't right at the end of the tunnel, right? It got really dark before it got brighter, and I had to have faith. Much like you, Kurt, I believe things happen for a reason, and you learn through all of that. So I learned to become a better father to my children. I learned to become a better partner for my new wife, and we've been married almost 4 years at this point. So I learned to become just an overall better person through it, and most honestly, probably a better employee and coworker to everybody that's part of my team. So,
wow. Hey, Pat, how much fun was it to talk to Rich? Seriously.
You're a great guy, Rich. It's a really cool meeting.
It was, all sincerity, this was I'm so glad we brought you on. As is always the case, Rich, final words always go to our guests. If there's something you want to, we'll obviously post anything in the post copy, but final words go to you. If there's something you want to say, something we didn't ask you that you wanted to kind of throw out there. So the floor is yours, Rich.
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I don't know if there isn't anything that you didn't ask that I wish you would have. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me and hear me out. We do so much of what we do. I want to protect my team. I want to protect our customers. I really want to just be there to help, and somebody that they can trust. And so for me, it's always about building that core component, that foundational base, and then growing from there. And then from that, I use the row in the boat analogy a lot at work as well. And it's everybody rowing in the same direction with the same energy. And that's really what I'm about as a person. That's what I bring to the table. And that's really what I expect of everybody else around me. And so I appreciate you guys again letting me talk and be a little philosophical about what makes me tick, and not just Sentry stuff. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. I like your vibe. I like your vibe a lot. So, folks, there you have it. This was Over a Pint with Rich Gaffney from Sentry Equipment. Rich, we thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Till next time, cheers.
Cheers, Rich.
Cheers, guys.